All right. Thank you, everybody, for showing up today. It is a great, beautiful day in Washington, D.C. to be hosting this event. Thank you for all of you being here. I am Lindsay Rousseau. I am the Media Affairs Coordinator for Continue to Serve. I will be your MC today. We've got an amazing lineup of speakers from people representing the union space, the activist space, the community service space.
We may be small, but we are mighty.
Convoy against white nationalism that is infecting our country. But after the unprecedented invasion of Ukraine, it's morphed into something bigger. The reality is that it's all connected. The election of the former president emboldened white nationalists, neo-Nazis, racists, misogynists, climate deniers, QAnon conspiracists, and fascists to step out of the shadows. He not only provided support, but he gave them a platform to spew their hate.
We watched as neo-Nazis marched through the streets of Charleston and were praised by the commander-in-chief. We watched as police arrested, beat, and killed black men with impunity. When the BLM movement took to the streets, they were called terrorists, Antifa, and thugs. While the alt-right protesters injured and killed people, they were hailed as patriots. This is in fact what led to the birth of Continue to Serve. This organization was founded by a group of military veterans who were horrified by the egregious clearing of Lafayette Square by the administration officials on June 2nd, 2020. The desire for an egocentric and pompous photo op resulted in peaceful protesters being beaten, gassed, and sprayed with chemicals. As veterans, we took an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The former president proved to be one of the most dangerous domestic enemies. As he attacked autonomous institutions of government like the FBI and its
What are you hearing on the audio?
His stranglehold on the Republican Party intensified, with representatives refusing to condemn his actions. He lobbied attacks on the media that sought to fact-check him with cries of fake news. This man spent his time in office praising and cozying up to Putin, a dictator he aspired to emulate, at one point claiming that he had the power to, quote, do whatever I want as president. We know that Putin ordered an aggressive, multifaceted, clandestine campaign to interfere with the 2016 presidential election.
The former president personally called on Russian hackers to target Hillary Clinton. Perhaps the alt-right has because his treasonous attempt to blackmail Ukrainian President Zelensky by withholding weapons and other military aid that Congress had already authorized. He wanted Zelensky to smear Joe Biden's son Hunter Biden with false charges in order to influence the outcome of the 2020 presidential election. All of that leads us to January 6th.
Thanks to the Electoral College,
this country elected an egotistical autocrat who refused to accept defeat.
He knowingly
incited a mob that spent 4 years believing his lies.
Sat
back and watched as these fascists attacked the very heart of our democracy. And after 4 years of a president who continuously attacked science, refused to take COVID seriously, and managed to politicize life-saving vaccines, this convoy should come as no surprise. The United States has become a nation of individualists, and those of us who believe we should work for the good of the whole are called communists. Concepts like universal health care, education, child care, and vaccines are denounced as threats to personal liberty and freedom. The same individuals who are disenfranchising millions of voters, denying women the right to control their own bodies, attacking LGBTQIA people's rights to exist, and putting the interest of fossil fuels above that of our dying planet, claim that we are the threat to freedom. How does this all tie into Putin's invasion of Ukraine? Whistleblower Army Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, who served on the former president's White House Security Council, recently stated in an interview to Salon magazine that, quote, the Tucker Carlsons, the Donald Trumps, the Mike Pompeos, They and other Republicans are the reason that Russia launched this operation. There is blood on the Republican Party's hands. They were partially responsible for what is happening in Ukraine. Lieutenant Colonel Vindman filed formal reports in 2019 disclosing that the president was engaged in acts of political extortion against the Ukrainian government. He testified during the impeachment hearing, resulting in the loss of his military career, and became a target of violent threats. He argued that the former president's coup attempt and other assaults on American democracy and the rule of law encouraged Vladimir Putin to pursue this invasion. This rally isn't just about combating white nationalism and authoritarianism. It's about the future of our democracy, the future of this country. I stand here as a woman and a combat veteran. I fought in an unjust war against Iraq, but I am now fighting to defend our democracy in my own country. People like to call veterans patriots, and for the longest time I despised this word, patriot, for it was so often associated with the alt-right. But in the words of Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, quote, "To me, a patriot is somebody who actually puts the interests of the nation above themselves." So what can we do? Continue to fight. Spread our message of tolerance and understanding. Help those less fortunate in our neighborhoods and communities, and don't stand silently by when we witness abuse and injustice. This country is at a crossroads. The 2020 and 2024 elections are going to be a test of our very democracy. Extremism shows no signs of abating. The convoy of white nationalists who are camping out in Hagerstown as I speak, threatening to descend on the Beltway, continue to be emboldened and spew their hate and disinformation. We can't afford to become complacent. It's time for the majority of this country to come together as one, to stand up for the rights of all the oppressed in this country and throughout the world, to shine a light on abuse and corruption, to tell the alt-white, the white nationalists, the autocrats and fascists that they don't speak for us. Thank you. All right, so next up, we are going to have Rig, who is best known as the U.S. Army Overlord. Oh, that's taped. Yep, that's duct taped. You might need a knife to get that off. You got it? Okay, cool. I know, exactly. We've got knives, we've got, duct tape. We can fix anything. If we have 550 cord, we're good to go. All right, we're getting it. We're getting it. It's always good to have props. There we go. Come on up here, Rig. The mic is yours. Take it away.
Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people. 22 years, 11 months, and 4 days. I served as a soldier in the United States Army. 5 operational deployments. There's a difference between real and fake patriots. Real patriots put the needs for our country above our own. In 1995, I deployed to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, to help migrants who was suffering under a terrible, vindictive regime. Thousands of people jumped into the water in 1995. Overwhelmed the Coast Guard. We was called up out of Fort Carson, Colorado as part of JTF 160 to rally to save those migrants' lives. I met all kind of people while we were out there. Doctors, lawyers. One soldier told me that he hadn't been paid in 9 months under this regime. So that one night that he was on patrol, he went out, got a raft, and made his break for Florida. He was intercepted by the Coast Guard and brought back to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Bill Clinton granted them all asylum. It was in that deployment that I understood that America could be a beacon of light for the world. You contrast that today. when you see fake patriots out here thinking that patriotism is something like a Walmart flag that you can wrap around your shoulders and all of a sudden be transformed into patriotism. That's not being a patriot. Real patriots sacrifice for a country, even when they don't love us. Even when they're given the dark history of America. My mom grew up a backdoor slave in Mississippi. I understand when I see white Nazis at the door what it means. I understand when they carry that treasonous flag of the Confederacy. I understand exactly what that history means. And we will not back down. And deployed to Bosnia in 1996. I didn't know the planet got that cold outside the poles. Negative 55 degrees. Minefields, 30 million line minefields while we was out there. Just like you see that's happening in Ukraine today, when you give evil men power, the world becomes more dangerous. We watch farmers run for their lives. A mother and her daughter stepped on the mine, killing the mother instantly, and the child lost her leg out there. I've seen the horrors of war. I've been out here serving this country since 1993. Multiple deployments. Cuba 95, Bosnia 96, Kosovo 99. I didn't see the fake patriots there. Being a patriot is not watching Fox fake news and thinking that somehow you transformed into a patriot. That's not patriotism. I buried my mother before I deployed to Iraq in 08. Out there in the sands in Fob Hammer, dealing with 130-degree temperatures. Seeing unbridled corruption in Afghanistan in 2013. Came back here in 2014, and guess what I saw? Soldiers that I served with turned their back on Barack Obama. Let me tell you how I got to go to the White House to see a soldier get the Medal of Honor for the actions we did out here in Afghanistan. They asked soldiers while we was at the Pentagon who wanted to go. Who wanted to go out here and see, a soldier receive the highest honor in their land. I stood back, I said, okay, I'm gonna let these young soldiers go. Can you believe what they said? They said that they didn't want to be in the White House with a Muslim. They didn't want to be in the White House with a man that wasn't an American citizen. I immediately raised my hand and said, I'll go. I'll go, because there's a difference between real and fake patriots, right? We've pledged the oath to the Constitution of the United States of America. How dare you come out here and defile our capital? How dare you come out here and speak the name patriot? Saying the word patriot doesn't make you a patriot. You got to come out here and have some skin in the game. And that's why I knew I would raise up. I knew, just like when I became a soldier after the riots, the LA riots, I knew just like when I decided to marry my wife in Germany, and I knew the moment that I would be a Black Lives Matter activist. When I seen fake patriots out here attacking our capital, we've got to make a stand. Whether it takes 10 months or 10 years, we must be absolutely relentless in our fight against white supremacy. Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rig. All right. Next up we have Rudy Gardner, who is the principal officer of Teamsters Local 922.
Thank you. My word today is freedom. That's what all of us need, some freedom. My name is Rudy Gardner. I'm president of Local 922, Teamsters International Brotherhood. I'm located right here in Washington, D.C. I'd like to continue to serve for inviting us here and having this event. The International Brotherhood of Teamsters represents everything from A to Z, as we would call it, airline pilots to zookeepers. Among those are hundreds of thousands of truck drivers, mechanics, and other workers in the field of logistics and transportation. Even as thousands of people dying of COVID during the worst days of this pandemic, Teamsters were still out there doing their job, delivering and groceries, medicine, overseeing the food supply chain, and filling countless other critical roles. My membership is here in Washington, D.C. I represent WMATA, Metropolitan Transit Authority. No matter how bad things got during the pandemic, we still came to work. Even every day, we knew that hundreds of doctors, nurses, and workers needed to work. So I'm proud as a Teamster to work hand in hand with so many others to fight this horrible disease. In fact, when the first doses of this vaccine arrived in the United States at Wake Forest Medical Center in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, it was delivered by one of my Teamsters brothers. Our union lost a lot of people during this virus for the past 2 years. As a country, we had to learn in the worst way possible how dangerous it is when safety on the job isn't taken seriously. I'd like to bring this up because I want to make it loud and clear here today that these convoys, whether it was the one in Canada or the one that's up in Hagerstown or the one coming here today, do not represent us. They don't represent truck drivers, they don't represent workers of class, they don't represent anything, any of the best things of our great country has to offer. Brothers and sisters, those so-called freedom convoys impede our economy gain we've made by disrupting international trade. They impede our livelihoods of working families here and in Canada. So above all, they don't represent all of the ordinary Americans who made extraordinary sacrifices during this pandemic of our lifetime. Something all our brave veterans here today know about all too well. So what they represent, well, many of those represented in the convoy are members of groups like the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and the 3%ers, or the Trumpeteers. These groups, with their affinity and conspiring theories and white nationalism, represent the most sinister impulses of American political life. They represent bigotry and cruelty. They represent not better angels of our nature, but the nastiest demons of the past, of our past. These groups are enemies of labor because they are ideological descendants of those who fought against Teamsters and other labor unions and who worked hand in hand with civil rights leaders. Civil rights leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King, John Lewis, and others who gave their lives for the cause of better, more tolerant Americans. Leaders understood that our country's diversity is a source of its power. So I say again, those groups that come to our nation capital today do not represent us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, next up we have Paul Mooney, who is an organizer for the DC branch of Food Not Bombs. Awesome. Come on up here, Paul.
Hello, thank you for coming out today. My name is Paul. I organize with the DC chapter Food Not Bombs. We're an organization that takes food that would otherwise be thrown out from grocery stores or from restaurants, and we take it and we prepare it and we serve it in DC's public areas. Our chapter has been going since 2013, but there have been many chapters of Food Not Bombs in DC's history that have started and stopped at different times. We're serving right now in Franklin Square Park, and then at 3 p.m. we move over to McPherson Square Park. We do a split serving. We serve in two parks right now because 2 years ago, Franklin Square Park was closed, and all of the people who were living in Franklin Square Park, because there's no public housing for these people, were evicted from the park. And it was closed because they were renovating the park to be reopened under new management under the Downtown DC Business Improvement District. And clap if you know what a business improvement district is. Right, they're kind of an esoteric information. It's not a thing that everyone knows about. It's where you take an area of the city and you give it a special tax designation whereby the business taxes get sucked out of the pool of taxes that pay for like public utilities like education and housing, and they get put into a special pot, and it's just used for business. And it's then controlled by a nonprofit which has no public oversight, and it is impossible to dissolve unless if Muriel Bowser, for some reason, wants to dissolve the downtown DC bid. But given that Muriel Bowser has set up several bids during her time, that's very unlikely to happen. So we have a park now that people used to live in that is now under essentially private management, and their first thing to do was to not allow homeless people into the park. And they set up a separate serving area, and they say if you want to serve, you can serve in a literally segregated area that is on a closed down street. And so right now, since the opening of the park, we've been serving in the park. We have had employees of the bid come up to us without any jurisdiction telling us that we had to leave. We've had people tell us that this is a family park, which we are stealing from the public, that this is a park which is supposed to be for everyone and not just homeless people, and that we are selfishly taking it back for the homeless people by serving food there. Now, this I think is very similar to this, because what you have is you have leaders from a certain area that claim to represent the area, but they do not represent the people inside of it. They only represent the idea of it, right? Downtown DC Bid, the CEO of Downtown DC Bid was Neil Albert. He's the guy whom we met with, who told us that we were lying about everything we were saying. We went with him personally, and he said that he would not allow us to serve in the park. Now, this man was the deputy mayor under Adrian Fenty. There's a lot, if you want to read about the bad things that Adrian Fenty did in his time as mayor, there's a lot to read about. But at this time, he was a CEO of the Downtown DC Bid, and he was the head of the DC Housing Authority, okay? So this is a man who was actively keeping homeless people out of parks, who was in charge of the housing authority, of the public housing at the same time. And while we were having this tiff with him, it came out that he was using his position as the public housing authority director to give contracts to his girlfriend. And then he was removed as the DCHA head, and he resigned as the CEO of the bid. But the point is that we have people who claim to represent DC. If you look at Neil Albert's Wikipedia page, it's just a bunch of public offices in DC he's held. You have no reason to necessarily expect that this man has done anything of like ill intention. He seems to have been serving DC all his life because he's only worked in the DC government. Yet when you see his actual when you see his actual actions towards the people of DC, it tells a very different story. And with these same people, the new right, or not even a new right, the right in general, claims to represent an idea of America, but they hate all Americans inside of it. And it's very important for us, whether it's in a service-backed thing like mutual aid, or something like this, which is advocacy for new social ideas, for new feelings. It's very important to understand this linkage, which is a fundamental difference between the people and the institutions which claim to serve those people. Something that we've been doing as an anarchist organization is that during this time with the Russia and Ukraine tiff, is that there is not a single side that we want to stand with, because right now the solution that people are proposing of bringing NATO into Ukraine into NATO would only exert more exploitation of poor people around the world, because that's what NATO has done the entire time. We would love to not see Ukraine destroyed like this, but also we do not want to see the Ukrainian government, which has continuously hurt people who are advocating against Ukraine's own warmongering, Ukraine's own neo-Nazis which are in their military. We do not want to see the Ukraine government be able to flourish the way that it has, because it's still not been a good influence on its people. There are people in both Russia and Ukraine who are anti-war activists who are getting targeted right now unfairly. And it's important that we have to stand in solidarity with the people in these countries, but not the institutions itself, because we've been shown time and time again that people who claim to be representing us through institutions, even at a local level, even people in DC, even someone like Neil Albert, who says I want statehood for our people, who want something that's good for us, they will still only represent us on an institutional level, which is why it's so important for people to come out here today and connect with each other personally, as people who have ideas of what they want the world to be, and not to leave it up to institutional things. The whole idea of mutual aid has a very, very long history that is deeply tied in with anti-fascism, which is what we are doing today. We are against the fascists who are coming in our country, or coming to our city, sorry, they were already here. And in the same way, the whole idea of mutual aid was founded around the time of Russian Revolution. The Russian Revolution in the earliest 20th century is when the words mutual aid were first put down. And it was the same time that the people who were talking about mutual aid were in these militias, which were literally fighting the rise of fascism at this same time. The history of anti-fascism and the history of mutual aid are inextricably tied together throughout the history of progressive and leftist thought. And so, though we come from different, backgrounds of representing the people, it is important that we understand this and have solidarity, which is why I'm very grateful that you guys had me out here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, next up, we have Naveed Shah, who is an Army veteran, and he is also the political director for Common Defense.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Naveed Shah. I'm an Army veteran, and I'm the political director of Common Defense. We're a grassroots progressive veterans organization. We have 300,000 members nationwide, and we're proud to stand here today with Continue to Serve and all the organizations who are standing against this rising tide of hate that we're seeing in our country. Common Defense was founded in 2016 during the 2016 election, and we were originally founded as Veterans Against Trump. After the 2016 election, we realized that this couldn't just be a flash in the pan. This had to be a sustained movement, and we founded the organization. We empower veterans to stand up for our communities against this rising tide of hate, racism, and violence. We organize against the entrenched powers that have rigged our economy, and we champion an equitable and representative democracy and where liberty and justice truly is for all. For too long, politicians from both sides have used veterans as political props. They think that we're all conservative and that we have no thought of our own. That's just not true. And that's why groups like Common Defense and Continue to Serve and all the other ones you're hearing about are so important. We need to change this narrative that veterans are a monolith. There are 20 million veterans in this country, and at least half of them are not going to be voting for the Republicans. And at least half of them know better than when they hear convoys and truckers and all these people who have been brainwashed by the right wing talk about all the vaccines and masks are not necessary. We went to school. We know science. We know that these things are important. And more importantly, we're able to use all the important stuff that we have learned in the military and outside the military to effect change in our local communities. We want to support our members, our veterans, and their families to be able to empower and make changes in their country and their communities. This vision is still alive and well, regardless of the noise that you're hearing from these truck convoys or whatever they are. And that's why I'm grateful to stand in solidarity with the groups of Continue to Serve and everyone else here today. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you so much. All right, we've now got Olivia DiNucci, who is an organizer with Code Pink.
Hi everyone, I first want to give a huge shout out to the organizers and to those of you who came out here today. As this has been evolving, there's been a lot of ways in which folks have been very intentional with how to keep communities safe, each other safe, and also send a message that we don't stand for this. I'm up here today in solidarity with those who actively oppose systems of oppression, whether it be white supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy, colonialism, imperialism, and militarism. Connecting the local to the global. None of this is new. However, the pandemic did expose some of the deep, rotted roots of injustices from our backyards and to across the world. But we also saw people rise. The movement for Black lives and racial justice uprisings, the largest demonstrations in solidarity with Palestinians, over 250 million farm workers strike in India, the long-withstanding indigenous-led resistance to environmental degradation in parts of the Amazon and to stop pipelines, and youth-led climate justice movements. And today we're seeing people rise in solidarity with those in Ukraine and the bold anti-war Russian protesters. Together, building and growing is our pathway forward. Yes, we should call out the alt-right and the Republicans, but we should be calling out all of our elected officials as they continue to fail us. Right now, we've spent $768 billion, the largest Pentagon budget in history, and we can't pass affordable health or free health care, education for all. climate justice initiatives, affordable housing, and all of these things, again, have been perpetuated and boiling over the pot during the pandemic. I invite us to use inspiration from just a few of the examples I just said right there, to come together, be in dialogue with each other, disrupt systems, learn from Indigenous knowledge, in combination with youth-led energy, in order to move forward and live the just transition we all want, and it is possible. So as we continue to see what's unfolding on the Beltway here and between Russia invading Ukraine, I just invite us to be with folks who can support you, and that however many folks are here today, we need double tomorrow and 4 times that next week, and we have to continue to build so that we are sending the message to be anti-war, anti-racist, anti-imperialist, anti-poverty, all of that. So thank you so much today, and again, thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. Thank you for being here again. All right, next up, we have Air Force veteran Sheila Holmes.
Thank you. Hello. I'm put on the spot a little bit, so please forgive me. I rode down from Philadelphia today. I actually live in Lehigh Valley. Wanted everybody to know I saw not one truck parked anywhere. They don't speak for me. They don't speak for the other people that are here. I was worried about it. I want to say that one of the things that was most frustrating to me was to ride up to Freedom Plaza and to see that United States flag and not know whose side it was on. And I don't think that's fair. Not until I saw that sign that says fascist losers out of DC. Those are my people. So I just wanted to say that. Like, I come from conservative New Mexico. That's where I grew up. I'm out here now. There's hope for everybody. For 20 years, I didn't tell anybody I was a veteran because I didn't want to offend my LGBTQ community. I was very concerned about that. The flag has been used to harass people, bother people, oppress people, and it's really time for veterans to just take that back. Take it back. It's ours. It's not anybody else's. Stand up. Wear your hat. Show people who you are. You know, stand with solidarity with your people. Like, show who you're with. That sign tells me who I'm with. I knew to come right over to it. The flag with the LGBT flag underneath it, the trans flag, Black Lives Matter flag, I knew where I belonged. Please don't hide. That's all I can say. Use your voice. They asked me to speak. I said, no, I'm not going to speak. I don't know what to say. I do have a voice. I do know what to say, and here I am.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, next up we have Breezy from the Frederick Anti-Fascists. Awesome. Man, our crowd is growing. This fills my heart with joy.
I don't think I've ever used a microphone. It's always a megaphone. So does anyone have any idea what mandates they're talking about? Any fucking idea what mandates they're talking about? No? Okay. Because it was never about mandates. The entire thing is a bullshit grifting front for fascism, white nationalism, and authoritarianism. Funneling money from the same people who orchestrated J6, the organizers are Proud Boys, Boogaloo, Oath Keepers, and 3%ers. Do not allow them
question now is for the media that's present today. How will you them for what they are? A fascist occupation. Will you talk about September 18th, November 14th, and December 12th? How every time these people come into our cities, they harass and harm unhoused people and people of color. Justice protesters for years. Meanwhile, these folks get escorts into the city. Cops have never and will never keep us safe. Who keeps us safe?
We keep us safe.
Who keeps us safe?
We keep us safe.
We keep us safe through community defense. Folks like Remora House and Food Not Bombs DC. They've set up phone lines to help ensure people have all the resources that they need. Organize with your local affinity groups. Train and build your community. It's okay to point and laugh at them, at the fucking convoy. Please do. They are failures. Too scared to even come into DC. Where are they?
They broke down in Vegas.
Where the fuck are they? They're not fucking here. Their disorganization and paranoia is hilarious. But I'm going to continue to say what I've been saying, what many anti-fascists have been screaming for years, especially to you blue check liberals. Do not sleep on the danger of these people and their beliefs. Do not run and hide when they come around. Confront them. You cannot vote out authoritarianism. Even though these fascists are loud, they are not the majority. They don't speak for us. Say it. They don't speak for us.
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 They are losing, and they know it. Be louder. Keep speaking out. It will take all of us to stand against them. Thank you. All right, and last up, we have Erin Betcher, who is the Executive Director of Continue to Serve.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. First off, I want to say thank you to all of the organizations that came out today to help us organize this event. Hold up. Oh, we got here. Can I get a sound check? My sound guy's coming up. Give me a second. Usually the sparks go off right then and I come down. So. Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Cool. So I'm Aaron Betcher. So I'm Aaron Betcher. I'm the Executive Director of Continue to Serve. I've been working with Continue to Serve since 2020. I have been holding kind of an open door, drop-in, bring your projects, basically acting as project manager for a lot of different veterans organizing groups across the country. And I met David Smith, who was the original founder of Continue to Serve, when he showed up to my Wednesday meeting and just needed some help organizing. You know, today I want to try to address this question of why should we fight? You know, for a lot of us in this space, we've been organizing and working here since 2020, and as everyone knows, it's getting more difficult and harder to keep this fight going. And so today I want to talk to you about why we should fight. You know, too often these days the resistance gets frowned upon. Many of us were raised under the idea that you have to go along to get along. And those of us who served learned to take orders and execute on them. Some of us learned the value of what it means to lead. And leadership, to me, is the act of taking responsibility. That responsibility might be towards a shared vision. It might be towards the life of your fellow shipmate or coworker. And when we come out here and organize together, we're taking responsibility for the future of our country. So thank you for coming out today. You know, we're in a weird and special time. where the act of resisting the deep injustices of this world is able to have a profound impact on the course of events. So as I talk today, I'm talking to my fellow organizers here in the crowd. And what I'm going to ask of you is to continue to stand up for what you believe in. You know, it's harder and harder. Every one of these events that we try to organize, it gets harder and harder to get a showing. But I look out here today and I see 50, 60, 70 people who showed up for this event. How strong are we? Too strong. How strong are we? Too strong. That's right. Now, when you step up to lead and you step up to organize, you're going to start learning things. You know, sometimes we find out that our beliefs were based on false information, that what we learned growing up wasn't actually true. But that doesn't mean that we can't stand, learn, and change ourselves to be a better member of our community. How strong are we? How strong are we? That's right. You know, when you step up and lead, you're taking responsibility for yourself and your community. Sometimes, the main reason we step aside and conform to other people's beliefs is because we want to fit in. And we're afraid that if we don't, and we're afraid that we won't fit in if we speak our mind. But standing up for what we believe in and being ourselves can turn out to be one of the most attractive qualities to other people. When you stand up, you rally people to your cause. Look around you today. How many people do you see standing up right now? You stand up and you bring others out with you. You empower people to stand up by standing up yourself. You know, today we're in a struggle for a shared reality. When we fight for, sorry, my scrolling is not working very well here. Today we're in a struggle for a shared reality, and it's never been more on display than right now. On the other side of the Beltway, there is a convoy that is organizing based around the idea that one race should be superior to others. How does that make you feel? How does that make you feel as a DC resident? That's right, we're not having it. So today I want to ask you the question. If you start a conversation with a stranger, are you going to exist in the same reality as them? Part of our fight today is a fight for a shared reality. And that's where we need to stand. We need to work with one another, organize, and agree that we're going to live in the same world together. Because climate change ain't waiting for us. It's coming. It's coming like a truck rolling down the highway. So, yeah. All right, y'all, I just got a few more points here. Finally, I want to say that organizing is about building trust. You know, if you want to trust another group, you got to see some spine in them, and you got to see who's easy to influence. So when you get pushback on your organizing, on your activism, remember that when you stand up, people will stand up with you. So for just a moment, I want to step back, and I actually would like to have a little bit of a moment of silence and a moment of respect for the people that have died in Ukraine and that are going to continue to suffer because of the fascist actions that are coming out of the Putin regime. So if we can get a 30-second moment of silence, I would really appreciate that. All right, thank you. All right, y'all, that's our event today. Again, I want to say thank you for everyone showing up and coming out. Really appreciate it. I want to say thank you to Common Defense. I want to say thank you to Food Not Bombs. I want to say thank you to Code Pink, right here, my man. Thank you. You know, we're continue to serve.vet. If you want to check us out online, you can check us out on all our socials. And at that, I think we're going to call it. So thank you, everyone, and look forward to more events coming out from us. So thank you.